Hello fellow crafters, my name is George and this is the Spare Time Gym, and today we're gonna have a rather different video from my usual content. I'm not going to sculpt anything, but rather talk about Subnautica creatures. So I have listed animals in order of which I have found them in the first playthrough, and the first guy is going to be Peeper. I love this guy. Arguably it is the most famous creature from the game, caused by its huge yellow shiny eyes. It more like resembles to a round fluffy bird than an actual fish from our world, but overall the proportions, fin and body style and shapes are quite distinctive, and of course peepers have really big implications but in the lore and overall ecosystem of the planet Cuttlefish. And unfortunately I do not really like this guy. Design wise it kind of resembles a pufferfish from Earth. Also quite distinctively it only has one eye, which is quite strange considering that other creatures have 4 of them. Issue about him or her is the fact that it explodes in the face of everyone who swims by its eggs, and it is really stupid evolutionary feature to protect your offspring. Yeah, on Earth we have many creatures who die in the process of protecting their children, their eggs and so on, but not on that extreme, like dying from the first glimpse of smallest danger. That's really stupid, and you are really giving other creatures a free snack. So coming up, it is our friend from Metro Exodus, equipped with gas mask, gasopod. Of course, this featuring this distinctive gas mask face, and body-wise I would argue, and face-wise as well, it is a blend of dugong and manatee from Earth, but I'm not really very sure about this strange yellowy defense mechanism. Maybe it is more resembling the ink from octopuses behind, or a skunk. Not really sure about that, but overall the design is more or less strange and more or less different from our planet, so I would give it a good thumbs up. So the Stalker unfortunately is not one of my favorites. The design itself is quite generic in my taste. If we discard this color onto the back of it and the shapes protruding outside, it is more or less the simple shark design with elongated face, more like resembling crocodile teeth, and that's it. Mesmer is one of my favorites. This guy is really odd. Unfortunately, I was not really able to identify the mammal, fish, bird or something else this guy was based on. The only thing which more or less is kind of familiar is the body type, shape, which kind of resembles a brain, and nothing else comes out of my imagination, unfortunately. And this guy is really big as well. Unfortunately, for all the creatures, Subnautica creates this odd optical illusion where you are unable to tell how large creatures are. And looking at this picture, one bite from this guy should be able to take your head off. Sand shark's problem is that it is really crude looking. It looks like something a child would draw if imagining some kind of sea monster or predator fish or something similar. Its features are too cartoony, so to say. Design wise it resembles a flatfish species from Earth, and yeah, unfortunately there is nothing else I could say about this one. Reef pack is just ace. It looks awesome, it feels awesome, it is pacifistic, do not really harms you, and the sound of it coming out of deep waters makes your heart go slower. That you know there are not going to be any predators nearby, at least larger ones. I can maybe say that at least from top it really looks like a horseshoe crab, but other than that, of course, it is based on whales, more or less. More like idea of it is biter is a piranha with a deep sea fish protrusion on top of its head. Nothing else. I have nothing else to say about it. It is really generic and I don't really like the design, nor the fact that it is very difficult to spot it, and when it bites your face, it can be a small source of a jump scare in the game. Jelly rays are my weakness, so to say. First of all, the pluses is that it is quite beautiful creature. Of course, it's blend between jellyfish and stingray. But unfortunately for me, its simplistic design and the fact that this was the first large creature which had no implications in terms of gameplay mechanics, that I'm really not into them. Reaper Leviathan. I think it was the first project from Subnautica on my channel, and I really like this design. This is probably the best one from the game, all of it. This strange look, the sound itself, and the fact it do not really has any kind of bioluminescent part of its body, making it impossible to spot in the dark. Design wise, I can maybe very roughly say that the overall face and body shape is based on the wolf eel, but if you have seen wolf ears faces, unfortunately they are even more terrifying than the Reaper is. Bone sharks, I don't really find them that much more interesting than like stalkers. In my opinion, they are as simple stalkers on steroids. They do not have that distinctive feel, shape, sound and look. So yeah, meh creatures, just meh. Ampil on the other hand is a blast. I really like the design. Of course it's based on the electric eel from the earth. The only difference of course is this segmented body and these protrusions on which you can see the glowing white balls through which electricity is even visible. And I want to mention it here, as I have said about Mesmer, they are really big. If you see this picture, look at how large it is in comparison to a human being. I mean, one bite should be enough to insta-kill the player, not like deal like 25 or something damage. And speaking of being fair, I do not really like them. Crab snakes are something I do not really like, and their habitat, these huge mushrooms and their attack pattern, yeah, that was the most uncomfortable place for me to be. The sounds also, their sounds are really nightmare inducing, and yeah, they are the least favorite creatures in terms of my personal liking of them. I want to be as far away from them as possible. In terms of design, of course they are a blend of sea snakes, but I think that the mouth resembles more like a spider fangs than a crab's jaws, in my opinion. Yeah, bleeders, I do not really like them as well. Design wise, I do really enjoy their strange look, their tentacles using which they can attach to the creature, and I can like imagine being a fish and having these guys attached to you and suck all the blood out will be really bad feeling. Of course they are based on the leech, which is more of a worm-like creature, and the shape of the overall body do not resemble to it as well. Yeah, floaters. Basically they are one of the first creatures you encounter after leaving the life pod, but unless you swim close to the one of the small floating rocks. It's quite hard to notice them. I really like the idea behind them, the fact that they can make rocks float in the water, but the design of them is quite similar to some of our jellyfish species. The only difference being this nightmare-inducing mouth, which to be honest resembles a leech. Crab squids. They are fan favorites. Who doesn't love them? I love them. Their design, this huge 4 eyes, and the fact that their huge head is transparent, yeah, it's awesome. Basically, Earth-wise, I think that they look like octopus more than the squids. Of course, because of its main head shape being more like roundish, not protruding and elongated as most of the squids have. And of course, otherwise they resemble to a crab with based onto the legs, and maybe jellyfish due to its transparency of a head. Yeah, I'm really conflicting about sea traders. They are, on one side, they are really odd looking creatures. They have odd number of limbs, 3. Have you ever thought about some animal on our planet who doesn't have even number of limbs, being it legs, hands or fins? Gameplay wise, unfortunately, they do not really have that much of an implication. Like they are the only source of manure in the game. Also, they walk onto the bottom of the ocean, which is really strange. And design-wise, they of course resemble some kind of insect, more or less. Weevils, to be specific, in my opinion at least. Warfers are annoying. I do not really like. Body-wise, they resemble some kind of a blend between different leviathans and maybe other creatures. They are biomechanical, as much as I can understand, but I do not really want to talk about them because I find their teleportation ability, the one which teleports you, not them, really like anger inducing. I do not like them at all. Cuttlefish. Yeah, of course, it's a fat seal with giant eyes and some kind of octopus-like limbs, and at the same time it behaves like a puppy. Of course, I like it. Ghost rays and lava rays are quite similar, so I would like to talk about them in combination here. Unfortunately, they are simply based on mantas and are bioluminescent and transparent, and there is nothing more about them. Gameplay wise as well, they are pacifistic. They don't attack a player, you cannot really bump into them. Granted, they make nice noises when you enter Lost River, but that's it. I'm not really a big fan of it. Spine eels, once again, I don't really like them, and in my opinion they kind of do the same role as the bone shark does in comparison to the stalker. Like, they are just larger, more muscular and dangerous and uglier obstacle for you to go through the game. The design wise, they really resemble to a deep sea lizard fish, especially the head part. And yeah, so I'm really lucky because I stumbled upon this guy in the Lost River. I was careful enough not to go through the void and be happy by 2 of them suddenly attacking my ship. And that's why I'm not really very scared of these guys. The design itself is one of my favorites, definitely. The head looks like a hammerhead shark. The numerous amount of eyes, in my opinion, looks like a spider's head. And of course the body is simple snake-like and transparent on the jellyfish side. It's a long video, isn't it? So Red Ghost Ray, we have already talked about this guy, and Lava Lizard, I'm not really going to continue far about this one. The head looks like some kind of snake, but the body proportions and so looks like a seal. I'm not really a big fan of this guy. Again, it's not really that important to the narrative of the game. It looks like has the similar role as Stalker in early periods of the gameplay. The Sea Dragon Leviathan. Unfortunately, this guy is not very fascinating for me. The design wise, it looks pretty generic. It's a copy of Sea Emperor, and in my opinion, Sea Emperor looks much more distinctive and interesting than this one. It has this copy of tentacles from Sea Emperor, the body shape, the only difference being hands instead of fins, which is really odd looking. Also, the head is quite generic in my opinion, looks like a crocodile or something. I was much more afraid of Reapers, and really am still right now, than the dragon. It was a tiny obstacle with very easy to notice features. You always knew where it was because of its size and the place it lives. So yeah. And the Sea Emperor, the largest creature, exceeding 200 meters in length, also probably the heaviest one as well. I really liked its design. Everything I said about Sea Dragon, I think it's a copy from this one. Maybe it was done vice versa, but in my opinion, Sea Emperor has much more interesting look of it. The facial features reminds me to, again, a hammerhead shark, but also a turtle, which is this peaceful look on its face. Also, the two arms it has ending up with little fins. The structure of these limbs really reminds me of a praying mantis. And of course, tentacles is a simple squid-like structure, so to say. So we are finally done. It was a long one, and currently you can see my current idea what the tier list of these guys are. I tried to incorporate only the design features, like how different and distinctive they were from our earthly counterparts, and list them that way. I would really like to read your opinions, where you agree or disagree with me. Also hear what are the other base animals the game developers have thought about while designing these amazing looking creatures. Overall, of course, I do not really want to praise Subnautica once again, but creature design and the sound design of them is really good, and I can't wait to do the same thing with Subnautica Below Zero. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little bit of a deviation from my usual projects, and at the same time I cannot wait to hear from you about these amazing creatures, and I cannot wait to sculpt more of them in the next upcoming videos. Have a nice day and see you next time. Goodbye!